Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. Hope you guys are doing well. It's time for another fragrance buying guide. And today we're taking a look at one of the most popular fragrance lines of all time, one that's very near and dear to my heart. Acqua di Gio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through each fragrance in the Acqua di Gio line chronologically. So we're going to start with the first one and work our way down the line. I'll give you guys a breakdown of each fragrance and let you know which ones I like the most. And I'll let you know which fragrances should work best for which types of situations and which people. There are also discontinued fragrances in the line, but I won't be going over those because they're really hard to find unless you want to pay a big jacked up price on eBay. So Acqua di Gio Essenza, Acqua di Gio Blue Edition, Acqua di Gio Profumo Special Blend, those aren't going to be covered in this video. But even with taking those discontinued ones out, we still have 7 fragrances to go over. So let's jump into it and let's break down the Acqua di Gio line. We're kicking things off the only way that we can with the original Giorgio Armani Acqua di Gio that was released in 1996, which is, as of this video, the best-selling men's fragrance of all time. So that means, of course, that you should have at some point smelled this fragrance. Even if you weren't aware that it was Acqua di Gio, you picked it up on somebody that walked by you or somebody that you know. It's a very fresh fragrance, very smooth, it has citrus, floral nuances throughout. You can pick those up at the beginning, through the mid, into the dry down. It's a fragrance that has almost a sunny feeling to it, like it reminds you of spring, reminds you of summertime. It has a clean, salty marine accord, which is part of that Acqua di Gio DNA that you're going to find spread throughout the line of fragrances. And then it has a clean, musky, lightly woody dry down. The fragrance is iconic. Like I said, most popular fragrance, best-selling fragrance of all time for men. And this fragrance right here, Acqua di Gio EDT, was my signature scent for years. Back in the day when I worked at the local mall, at the local arcade inside the local mall, Acqua di Gio was my go-to. I ran through bottles of this stuff like nobody's business because the amount of compliments, the amount of attention that this fragrance pulled back then was insane. Like, I really can't overstate it. Almost everybody that came into contact with me, it felt like, was paying me compliments because of how good this stuff smelled. And the fragrance works just as well today as it did back then, but there will be some people that think that Acqua di Gio, the original, smells dated. You know, it's been played out. So many people have worn it. Like I said, bestseller of all time. So if you talk about something that has been worn to death, there is no fragrance on this planet for men that has been worn to death more than Acqua di Gio, the original. And so that's where maybe you want to get into these flankers, the fragrances that came out after the original that still maintain that Acqua di Gio DNA, but give it a twist, make it more interesting, and make it something where you'd rather reach for it. You know, it comes across a little more modern. So the first flanker we're going to talk about is Acqua di Gio Profumo. This one came out in 2015. As far as the Acqua di Gio flankers go, this one is the one that's gotten the most attention. This is the one that's gotten hyped the most. Not that other ones haven't gotten hyped, because they have. It's just Profumo's hype was on another level. Now, one thing you're going to notice with this fragrance and some of the others in the line is the note breakdown is very simplified when you compare it to the original Acqua di Gio. Now, I'm not going to read off the notes for every one of the fragrances that we go through here today. I'll highlight some things that are maybe important that you want to focus on as far as the note breakdowns goes. But in this one circumstance, I will go ahead and break down the full note breakdown just so you can see the differences and how things have been simplified as time has gone on. So with the original Acqua di Gio, this one had a top of lime, bergamot, mandarin orange, lemon, and jasmine, a mid of cyclamen, freesia, hyacinth, coriander, sea notes, peach, rose, and violet, with a base of amber, oak moss, musk, patchouli, and cedar. And depending on where you look, you may be able to find a couple more notes to go ahead and throw into that note breakdown. So you got a lot going on there. Acqua di Gio Profumo, bergamot and sea notes in the top, geranium, sage, rosemary in the mid, patchouli, incense in the base. So as you can see there, a lot less going on note breakdown wise. So this one does still maintain that freshness from the original. It still has that Acqua di Gio DNA. So when you smell Acqua di Gio Profumo, you know immediately this is an Acqua di Gio fragrance. You can easily tie it in with the original. but that floral freshness from the original has been stripped away here, and instead you're given an incense in the base, which is going to give it a little more versatility in cooler weather. The incense is not heavy-handed, but it does give a nice light smokiness to the fragrance, which I think really opens things up. It also has a little bit of a warm spiciness that you pick up in the opening, and that helps meld together with the incense, again, to give it that little better versatility for cool weather. It has a slight aromatic tinge from the rosemary and the sage, and it also has ramped up performance compared to the original. So for me, between Profumo and the original, even though the original is near and dear to my heart and I wore the heck out of it, I'd rather wear Profumo. The next flanker we're going to talk about is Acqua di Gio Absolu, and this one came out in 2018. Now, Acqua di Gio Absolu and the one that came after this, which we'll talk about in a moment, stand apart a little bit from all the other flankers in the line because they don't really smell all that close to the original Acqua di Gio. There's a big difference between the original and Absolu. Whereas Profumo, you smell that and you know right away it's Acqua di Gio. Even if you're blindfolded, you can tell. When you smell Acqua di Gio Absolu, if you're blindfolded and you don't know this fragrance, you probably wouldn't be able to place it as an Acqua di Gio. It actually smells a little bit more similar to something like Paco Rabanne's Invictus Aqua, with a bubblegummy sort of sweetness to it. So this one is more of a sweet, fresh, and mildly woody aquatic fragrance at its heart. The woodiness here, even though it is subtle, is very much needed because it does help stop that bubblegummy sweetness from going full bore, hardcore, youthful, and potentially headache-inducingly, cloyingly sweet. It helps rein that in a little bit. And from all the fragrances we're going to talk about, Acqua di Gio Absolu is the one that gets the most hate from the fragrance community. But in spite of that, in terms of just compliments, like if that's the only thing that matters to you, Acqua di Gio Absolu is a compliment monster. People absolutely love the fragrance. It's got great versatility. You can use it in all kinds of different situations. You could really nearly use it year round. And even though that woodiness does help balance the sweetness here a little bit, it still does lean toward the youthful side of things. So older guys may not really appreciate Acqua di Gio Absolu all that much, but some of the ones upcoming, they may. So after that, in 2019, we had Acqua di Gio Absolu Instinct, a flanker of a flanker. So Acqua di Gio Absolu is a flanker of Acqua di Gio, and then Acqua di Gio Absolu Instinct is a flanker of Acqua di Gio Absolu. I know it starts to get confusing, kind of like Inception. So this is going to be more similar to Acqua di Gio Absolu than it is the original Acqua di Gio, but I will say there are actually pretty big differences between Absolu and Absolu Instinct. This one is not as bubblegummy sweet. It's actually a little bit darker and woodier. It has sort of a warm spiciness that goes throughout the fragrance and not as much of a marine or aquatic feel in this one. The concentration here is more on woods and spices than it is on sweetness and aquatic notes. Performance, once again, is solid in this fragrance. I will say that this one does not come across as youthful as Absolu. It's a little bit more grown up. It's, to me, a little bit more interesting to smell. But as far as just being a straight up compliment beast, it's not on the level of Absolu or Profumo or some of the other ones that we're going to talk about. It's a little bit more potentially divisive, but it has grown on me a lot over the years. So this is one of those fragrances that at first you may smell it and think, not great, I'm not in love with it. And then as you wear it more over time, you grow to appreciate it. That takes us to 2020, the release of Acqua di Gio Profondo. Now this one right here, Profondo, is my personal favorite of the line right now. So if I were gonna pick just one Acqua di Gio to keep, it would be this one, and this is the one that I wear the most personally. And this takes things back to the fresher side of Acqua di Gio. Not quite as bubblegummy sweet as Absolu, not as woody, not as dark as Absolu Instinct, and not as dark as Profumo. Whereas Profumo had that incense and that warm spiciness going on, this one instead returns that fresh aquatic feeling mixed together with a bit of a green edge. So as an aromatic feeling, kind of a minerality to the notes in the fragrance, the florals from the first fragrance from the original Acqua di Gio, those once again are stripped out. Has a great aquatic citrus opening. I think it smells fantastic, this one. It has that compliment factor from the original, just stripped down and modernized. And as well, the performance is better in Profondo than the original Acqua di Gio. So like I said, it's my go-to right now. I think that's the best in the Acqua di Gio line. If you want that Acqua di Gio DNA still front and center, but more wearable, more modern, and nicely balanced out with that little green touch that it has. It has just enough sweetness to be appealing to most all people, but not so much sweetness that it becomes overloaded. After that one came 2021's Acqua di Gio Profondo Lights. So once again, flanker of a flanker. And comparing this to Absolu and Absolu Instinct, those two were fairly different. I mean, they were close enough that you could see them being related, but they weren't so close that you would say it's redundant to own the two of them. Again, talking about Absolu and Absolu Instinct. Profondo and Profondo Lights, though, much more similar than Absolu and Absolu Instinct are. Because once again, you have that aquatic freshness tying this in with the original Acqua di Gio, just like Profondo is. And you also have a green edge to the fragrance in Profondo Lights, just like in Profondo. This one comes across maybe a little more salty than Profondo does. Comes across more green than Profondo does. Not as bright, not as sweet as Profondo. So this one's a little more aromatic, a little bit more green, a little bit more herbal than Profondo is. And I think once again, Profondo Lights, kind of like Absolute Instinct, is going to appeal a little more to people that want something slightly off the mainstream path as far as designer fragrances go, but they still want that wearability and that mass appeal. So while I do like Profondo still more than Profondo Lights is a great little twist on what they did with Profondo. And this one, just like Absolute Instinct, is a fragrance that has grown on me over time. It's one I didn't appreciate as much when I first got it in, but then giving it more wear, I really came around to like it. And that's gonna take us to the newest flanker as of when I'm filming the video, Acqua di Gio Eau de Parfum, released in 2022. So this is the newest in the bunch of Acqua di Gio fragrances, but in a way, it's also the oldest in the bunch, at least in the sense of who it's probably going to appeal to most. It comes across as the most mature flanker to me, as the most grown up, the most sophisticated flanker. So it would probably appeal more to guys middle-aged and older. Younger guys, they'd probably be better suited going after Profondo or Absolu or Profumo. Because Eau de Parfum here, once again, has that green edge, which you find in Profondo and you find in Profondo Lights, but here it's amped up even more. It almost has a faint earthiness to the scent as it dries down. And then the clary sage in the mid of this fragrance gives it a metallic feeling. So especially with younger guys, a fragrance that does come across a little more mature and has that green edge, that sort of earthy vetiver in the base as it dries down, a woody earthiness mixing together with the aquatic Acqua di Gio DNA and that metallic clary sage, all that put together, somebody that's younger is probably not gonna like that. They're gonna want something that's sweeter, that's more attention grabbing, that's a little bit, ever so slightly, more in your face. So while it still does have that Acqua di Gio DNA front and center, it still has that salty marine feeling, that freshness that you've come to expect from an Acqua di Gio fragrance. It's not on the level of freshness as some of the other ones in the line, and the ramped up maturity is going to make this appeal more to guys middle-aged and older, in my opinion. So those are the 7 Acqua di Gio fragrances currently available, and kind of a quick rundown for each one of them. One thing to keep in mind with these fragrances is that you can save money buying some of them from discounters, some of the fragrances that have been out for a little while, but Acqua di Gio is very popular, and this is not a line of fragrances that you're gonna find heavily discounted from full retail. So you might be able to find a bottle at FragranceNet, at Joma Shop, at Fragrance Buy, someplace like that, but it's probably not gonna be marked off all that much from at full retail. So while you might be able to find one of these for a small discount and save a little bit of money at a discounter, you're probably not gonna find them heavily marked off. So let's run through which fragrances would work best for which people and then wrap everything up. So as I said, Profondo is my personal favorite. This one retains the complement factor of the original, modernizes it. It has great versatility. You can wear it almost anywhere and people are gonna love it. And while it does have that little green edge to the fragrance, it's not overdone, because I know a lot of people don't really like green facets to their fragrances for whatever reason. This one keeps it muted enough that it won't turn people away. If you're younger and all you want is compliments, that's literally the only thing that you care about, Absolu is probably gonna be your best bet, along with Profondo. As well, Profumo is great at pulling compliments, so you should check that one out as well. And I would say of the entire lineup, Profumo probably has the most versatility at this point, again, because of that added incense, that bit of warm spiciness, along with the freshness from the original Acqua di Gio that's running throughout this scent here. So you can pull this off in warmer weather and cooler weather both. And for date nights, I would say Acqua di Gio Profumo may be your best bet of the bunch, but a lot of these would work really well in that situation too. Absolute Instinct and Profondo Lights, both great releases, but they won't appeal as much to your average everyday person as the fragrances that came before them, which is Absolu and Profondo. Both of these are worth checking out though, and I would say of the entire lineup, both of these are the ones that grew on me the most over time. So initially, maybe they didn't blow me away. I thought they were, decent, fine, but over time, grew to like them a lot more. The Eau de Parfum going to appeal more to people that want that original Acqua di Gio DNA, but made more mature, sophisticated, and modern. But do keep in mind the things that I talked about when we went over that one that may potentially turn you off. And what can you say about the original? Iconic. Maybe played out, maybe smells a little dated nowadays, but I think it still smells fantastic, throws me back, gives me nostalgia. Although realistically, I'd probably wear pretty much all of the flankers over that one at this point, even though it's still really solid. So there we go, the entire Acqua di Gio lineup as of right now, outside of the discontinued ones. As always, thank you guys for hanging out with me. Leave me a comment below, let me know which Acqua di Gio you like the most. Stay safe out there, I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.